Hello and welcome. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran and you're watching News Night on DD India and DD News, your primetime destination for news and bespoke analysis. It's good to have you again with us. All right, on the show tonight, Tuesday was day one of the engineering entrance examinations. Remember, they were postponed twice, but finally they began this morning. The exams were held amid strict COVID-19 protocols. Also on the show, India bids adieu to former President Pranab Mukherjee. Indian Information Technology Minister Ravi Shankar Prasad writes a letter to Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg. We tell you why. And China provokes India again in Ladakh. Chinese troops try to change facts on the ground. This even as military commanders from both sides hold talks. Plus, news and updates from around the world. All that and much, much more coming up over the next 1 hour. But first, as always, the headlines. JEE main exams begin amid strict COVID-19 protocols. Lakhs of students appear on day one of the 6-day engineering entrance examinations. Education Secretary thanks state governments for smooth conduct of exam on day one. Union Minister Ravi Shankar Prasad writes a letter to Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg, raises serious concerns regarding approach of Facebook India management, asks him to come up with country-specific community guidelines for better representation of diverse views. After provocation on August 29 and 30th, Chinese troops again engaged in provocative action on 31st August in the South Bank area of Pangong Lake. Indian troops took appropriate defensive measures. The MEA asks China to discipline its frontline troops. Nation bids adieu to former President Pranab Mukherjee. Last rites performed with full military honours. President, Vice President and Prime Minister and other dignitaries pay last respects. Condolences also pour in from the world over. Bangladesh to observe a day-long national mourning on Wednesday. The Supreme Court gives telecom companies 10 years for clearing their dues to the Indian government. Court directs companies to deposit a first installment of 10% of their dues by 31st March next year. In a bid to promote the use of solar energy, CSIR develops world's largest solar tree at Durgapur in West Bengal. It has the annual capacity to generate up to 14,000 units of clean and green power. COVID-19 recovery rate in India climbs to nearly 77% with 28 lakh and 39,000 recoveries. The fatality rate drops further to 1.77%. More than 10 lakh 16,000 samples tested in a single day. The global COVID cases stand at 2.56 crore. All right, let me dive straight into our cover story. Now, lakhs of students appeared on day one of the 6-day engineering entrance examinations. Over 9 lakh students have registered for JEE Main. The exam was held amid strict COVID-19 protocols. The Higher Education Secretary Amit Khare thanks state governments and National Testing Agency for the smooth conduct of the examination. Here's a report.
The joint entrance examination JEE Main commenced all over the country on Tuesday while taking all precautions and social distancing measures in view of the COVID-19 pandemic. The exam was conducted in 2 shifts. The candidates did not face any problem. They expressed satisfaction over the arrangements made at the examination centers.
I'm glad that they finally happened. I didn't want them to be postponed because it's a headache.
अप्रैल में एग्जाम होना था तो फिर प्रिपरेशन टाइम तो मिल चुका था.
सबसे पहले तो मास्क प्रोवाइड किया गया, उसके बाद फिर अंदर हम लोग को अंदर जाने से पहले सैनिटाइजर भी दिया गया, और सब कुछ अच्छे से अरेंज हुआ था.
पेपर का जो फॉर्मेट था वो मैथ्स, एप्टीट्यूड और ड्राइंग का था.
अभी भी पोस्टपोन होता तो फिर हमारा 1 साल बर्बाद हो जाता.
The National Testing Agency took several steps to conduct the papers safely. The number of examination centers have been increased significantly for JEE main examination. The exam is being conducted at 660 centers in 234 cities across the country. A total of 8,58,000 candidates are appearing in the exam. Besides, alternate seating arrangements have been made for candidates in order to ensure adequate social distancing in the examination. Additionally, it was also decided to increase the number of shifts from the earlier 8 to 12. Moreover, face masks and gloves have also been arranged for the candidates in case they need it at the exam center. The examination centers were thoroughly sanitized before the commencement of examination and after its completion. NTA's command center at Noida kept an eye at each examination center. In Odisha, the government facilitated the transportation for candidates appearing for JEE main. Besides the transport, candidates were also provided accommodation in Jajpur in the state.
जाजपुर डिस्ट्रिक्ट के जो जितने सारे स्टूडेंट्स एनईटी एंड जेईई एग्जामिनेशन के लिए फॉर्म भरे थे उनके जाने आने के लिए इंतज़ाम गवर्नमेंट ने किया था। आज जाजपुर से एक बस निकला है, उसमें जाजपुर और यहाँ से होके जो रगड़ी जाएगा, रगड़ी आईटीआई से कुछ स्टूडेंट्स हैं उनको लेके भुवनेश्वर कटक जाएगा। और एक दूसरा एग्जामिनेशन भी जो 4, 5, 6 तारीख को है उसके लिए 3 तारीख को सेकंड गाड़ी यहाँ से रवाना होगा और उनका वहाँ रहने का भी इंतज़ाम किया गया है। उनका पेरेंट्स भी जो साथ में जा रहे हैं उनका भी अरेंजमेंट खुद से वो करेंगे।
While in Maharashtra, candidates appearing for JEE and NEET exams have been allowed to travel by special suburban services over Mumbai suburban network of Central and Western Railways. This will help more than 50,000 candidates living in Mumbai and its surrounding areas to reach their examination centers safely. In Madhya Pradesh too, the state government provided transportation facility for candidates to reach the examination centers. JEE Main is the first major national exam being conducted amid COVID-19 crisis. JEE Main 2020 exam dates have been postponed twice, first in April and then in July due to coronavirus. Earlier, Supreme Court had dismissed a plea seeking postponement of the two exams, saying precious year of students cannot be wasted and life has to go on. With inputs from Nishant Saurabh, Newsnight Desk, DD India.
All right, time now for our In Focus segment in which we're discussing about JEE main exam begins amid COVID-19 protocols. Right, joining me are two very special guests, Professor V. Ram Gopal Rao, who is the director of IIT Delhi, and Professor Anil D. Sahasrabudhe, he is the chairman of the All India Council for Technical Education, also known by its acronym AICTE. Gentlemen, welcome to News Night. If I can start with you, Professor Rao. Now, your institute, the IIT Delhi, is a direct beneficiary of the National Testing Agency's processes. So, from your vantage, your perspective, how was day one of the JEE main?
Got conducted very smoothly.
Right.
I was also reading the reviews from the students. The students are also very happy. I think at least the process has begun now. At least one
Indeed.
uncertainty is taken away. Because students were earlier worried about health, but they were also worried about their careers. The health part of it, we still need to be concerned, but at least the career parts of it, now can go forward. Now from here, we'll start the journey. After now another 5 rounds of JEE mains, we will select 2.5 lakh candidates. We will conduct for them the JEE advanced examination on September 27th. Now from there, the results will get declared. Then there will be 6 rounds of counseling. Then the admissions will happen. At least, now that we are able to begin the process, the admissions can happen by end of November, by beginning of December. So, we have already lost 1 full semester. Now our academic calendars are all very highly packed. So now that, we have lost 6 months, now we need to at least get things back on schedule, and at least by end of 2021, we are hoping the semesters will become normalized. I think at least the process has begun, and I'm very happy that I would like to congratulate NTA. I think they should get all the credit for conducting such a massive examination throughout the country. The state governments for coming forward and doing what is required. I think the country has shown that we can surmount this problem move ahead. I think this gives everybody enough confidence on our systems and our
Absolutely.
processes. This is a very good sign.
Absolutely. Fair point. Professor Sastry, from your perspective, how was day one, and what's your feedback you are getting from your associates on the ground across the country?
I'm also indeed very pleased, like Professor Ram Gopal Rao, for the conduct of JEE Main. There are multiple reasons. One is I'm also from IIT system, so I know JEE and how valuable it is for getting admissions. I was myself chairman between 1997 to 2000 from IIT Guwahati. Saying that the examination got postponed twice, it created a lot of tension amongst the students. We all know that they were all under pressure, not only students, but also their relatives, parents. There was sort of uncertainty. And this uncertainty, once for all, has been now vanished. Secondly, being the chairman of AICTE, my concern was, unless IIT JEE Main and followed by that, after its result, advanced JEE of 2 lakh plus students, and then the result of that and the counseling of IITs, at least 1 or 2 rounds of counseling, unless it is over, we cannot start the counseling at the state level for the state level admissions, because they're all linked. Everyone in the country, whoever has appeared in the JEE Main, 8 lakh plus students, 8.5 lakh, they will be appearing and they will all be aspiring. Whether someone gets it or not is a different matter.
True.
But everyone aspires for that. And therefore, they will be in 2 minds, whether to take admission in a state government college or not take it. And even if they take, and all those students who get admission in IITs, not only IITs, JEE Main is also connected with the NIT admissions. So there are a large number of seats of IITs and NITs and several other state and central universities who take JEE score. They will all migrate from the state engineering colleges to those colleges. So there is a chain reaction which will happen. And although IITs will get settled down and their admissions and classes will begin somewhere around November end or December first week or second week, the other colleges will have to wait for another couple of months. And therefore, that cascading effect will have very, very bad effect on the entire technical education system in the country. I'm very glad that it has come off. Congratulations to MPA. Excellent arrangements. I was looking at the ground, various reports, various people in different centers. They have told that the arrangements were fabulous. I think social distancing, giving of masks, sanitizer.
Right, we'll come to those measures in just a bit, Professor Sastry. If I can bring in Professor Rao now, in fact, it gives me a perfect segue into my next question. Now, these exams were held in the backdrop of the COVID-19 pandemic. There were strict protocols to be adhered to by all stakeholders, be they institutes, the NTA, students, parents, you name it. In your assessment, in your perspective, how good were those SOPs, for instance, giving sanitizers, face masks, maintaining social distancing, having 2 shifts per day, reducing the number of students per exam center? So, in your assessment, how good were those SOPs and did they come good this morning?
I think so. In fact, IIT Delhi is directly involved. We are the organizing institute for the JEE advanced examination. I know the massive amount of effort that goes behind the scenes. People don't often realize that. To be able to double the number of centers, in such a short time, to make available all these centers for conduct of such prestigious examinations, and even the cost involved. The JEE advanced this year is costing us 50% more than the previous years. Now the fee remains the same. We are spending money. Government has been very generous. I think the financial implications, the massive effort that goes into having twice the number of centers, because we need to leave 1 seat between the 2 students, and arranging face masks for so many students, arranging sanitizers. I think all of that needs to be done, and somebody is working extra hard. We're all concerned about the careers of children. Finally, of course, we're all concerned about the health of children. We are all worried about the COVID effects. But I think life cannot remain standstill. I think life has to move on. And we need to, as a country, this has given us the confidence. Now that we could organize this examination on such a massive scale, now it has given everybody enough confidence that now things can open up slowly, and people also need to be disciplined enough. For example, once you enter the center or the premises of the center, we will take care of all the social distancing norms. But what happens on the streets where nobody is watching you? I think that is where the self-discipline is very important. Unless we all become self-disciplined, unless we all get used to this new normal, I think it is going to be disastrous for the country, to be continuously in the lockdown mode. I am very happy that the nation has been able to overcome this challenge.
Right.
The exam has been very successfully conducted. I think everybody needs to be congratulated for this.
Indeed. Professor Sasripurthy, you wanted to talk about the social distancing measures executed and implemented at all exam centers. In hindsight, with the benefit of hindsight, that should be reassuring for students and parents alike, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. This is absolutely reassuring to parents and students. Whatever little worries they had after seeing the first session, they are all satisfied. And the interviews given by many candidates, and their parents, that itself signifies that the arrangements were excellent and there are absolutely no trouble at all. Secondly, the social distancing has to be maintained both inside and outside. Inside, arrangements have been made by the institutions where the centers are located, but outside, when they are entering into the hall, their parents and relatives coming in, I think they should restrict that, and there must be some kind of a discipline, self-discipline, which should be maintained by everyone. If that is done, absolutely not a single case will happen because of this. And first and foremost, in fact, if someone has the COVID, they are already required to be under the house place actually and not come for the exam also. Therefore, I don't think there is any problem about COVID being spreading during the examination. This is an unnecessary worry which was there and which has been now stood to rest actually.
Absolutely. Professor Rao, now there are multiple stakeholders in this examination process. The National Testing Agency, or NTA, is just one of them. The state governments are equally stakeholders in the smooth conduct of this examination. Now, the Education Secretary has thanked state governments for cooperating with the NTA for the smooth conduct of the exam today. What is the feedback you're getting and your assessment of the state's contribution towards the successful conduct of these examinations?
No, I really would like to congratulate the state government. State governments have gone out of their way. For example, some state governments have even arranged accommodation for the parents, who accompany the students. In normal times, nobody bothers about it. I think this being the COVID time, state governments taking that extra step, going that extra mile to facilitate all of that. I think, as a country, we have shown the way. And also even IITs, for example, we said that there are some students who wrote to me saying in a normal time, we could have used public transport, but now I cannot afford private transport. So how would I travel to 100 kilometers or 200 kilometers? I cannot afford private transport. One appeal made by some of us, there were hundreds of people who registered. IIT alumni and some of the philanthropists, they created a website called EduRight, and hundreds of students have registered, hundreds of donors have registered. We have been able to match the donors with the needy students for arranging the private transport. And overnight, hundreds of students have benefited from such an initiative. I was myself amazed at the kind of response such an initiative has received. Now for tomorrow, for example, again something like 200 and 250 students are going to avail the free ride offered by the donors. Some of these students have traveled 300 kilometers using the private transport provided by these donors. I think these are the times where we need to be united. We need to help each other. I think we need to take care of each other. I think that's the only way the country can actually move on.
Absolutely. On that note, Professor Rao and Professor Sasripurthy, thank you so much for joining us on Newsnight. Thank you for your time once again. Appreciate it. Right, moving on for now, the nation bade a final farewell to former President Pranab Mukherjee, who passed away on Monday after a brief illness at an army hospital in Delhi. His last rites were performed at the Lodi Road crematorium in the capital with full military honours amid COVID-19 protocols. A 7-day state mourning was declared yesterday.
The last post sounded. The nation bid adieu to statesman and former President Pranab Mukherjee. Abhijit Banerjee, his son, performed the last rites at the Lodi Road crematorium in the national capital after full military honours were accorded. The day began with floral tributes at 10 Rajaji Marg, the official residence of late Pranab Mukherjee. President Ramnath Kovind, Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu, Prime Minister Narendra Modi paid floral tributes. Amongst the first to arrive was Defence Minister Rajnath Singh. Pranab Mukherjee's daughter Sharmishta, as well as other family members, were seen accepting condolences.
एक चीज़ उन्होंने बोला था जब मैं राजनीति में आया कि बेटा बदलाव का भावना से बाहर आ जाओ। इलेक्शन में हार जीत है, बदलाव का भावना से, रिवेंज का भावना से आगे नहीं बढ़ पाओगे।
Apart from Rajnath Singh, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, Union Health Minister Dr. Harshvardhan, as well as Union Minister Jitendra Singh also paid their last respects. The Union Cabinet condoled the demise of Pranab Mukherjee, former President of India. It passed a resolution expressing profound sorrow at the sad demise of Pranab Mukherjee, former President of India. The resolution read, "In his passing away, the country has lost a distinguished leader and an outstanding parliamentarian." It described Sri Pranab Mukherjee, 13th President of India, as a man of unparalleled experience in governance, going on to say, as President, Sri Mukherjee lent dignity to the high office and brought to bear his scholarly and humanitarian outlook on national and international affairs. The many awards and honours conferred on him included the Best Parliamentarian Award in 1997, Padma Vibhushan in 2008, and India's highest civilian award, Bharat Ratna, in 2019. Sri Mukherjee has left his imprint on our national life. In his death, the country has lost a distinguished national leader, accomplished parliamentarian, and a tall statesman. Home Minister Amit Shah also shared a condolence message. He said for decades, former President Bharat Ratna Pranab Mukherjee worked relentlessly towards strengthening the nation.
उनके भाषणों ने हमेशा देश को एक अच्छी बहस दी, एक नई दिशा दी, एक नया निर्धार भी दिया। आज प्रणवदा हम लोगों के बीच में नहीं है। हम सब सार्वजनिक जीवन में जो काम करते हैं और देश की जनता सबके लिए एक लंबे समय तक एक अपूर्णीय क्षति रहेगी।
The three service chiefs also paid the last salute to former President Pranab Mukherjee. A 7-time parliamentarian, Pranab Mukherjee was one of the most admired and respected political figures in the country. He was well respected by leaders across party lines. RSS Chief Mohan Bhagwat, as well as BJP President JP Nadda, also paid floral tributes. Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla too laid a wreath. Former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, leader of Congress in Rajya Sabha Ghulam Nabi Azad, as well as other Congress leaders, were also seen offering their condolences. The common man too paid last respects to him. A man of humble origins, former President Pranab Mukherjee will always be remembered as a hard-working person who had vast experience in administration, diplomacy and politics. Newsnight Desk, DD India.
All right, now to the second big story we are tracking here on Newsnight. India's Information Technology Minister Ravi Shankar Prasad has written a letter to Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg. Here's the letter for you. Now, this letter is dated 1st September, that's Tuesday, and he makes a number of points in his long letter, but a couple of key points here. The first essential point he makes is that he says Facebook can be accused of bias and inaction. Bias and inaction. How? He says Facebook deleted pages supportive of the right-of-centre ideology before the 2019 Indian election. He says Facebook, quote-unquote, substantially reduced the reach of some people who followed the right-of-centre ideology, and there was no recourse or right of appeal to those affected people. In fact, the Facebook India team is dominated by people who belong to a particular political belief. And he says the Facebook India employees in particular are on record on record abusing India's Prime Minister and other ministers. Now, I want to play out some more quotes from that letter of the minister. He says, and I quote him here, after having lost all democratic legitimacy, they are trying to discredit India's democratic process by dominating the decision-making apparatus of important social media platforms. Facebook is the latest tool in their arsenal to stoke internal divisions and social disturbances, unquote. The second quote comes up and it says, it is doubly problematic when the bias of individuals becomes an inherent bias of the platform, and it is unacceptable when political biases of individuals impinge on the freedom of speech of millions of people. Now, he goes on to say, this interference, mark his words, interference in India's political process through gossip, whispers and innuendo is condemnable, unquote. Now, the second point he makes in his letter is about the fake fact-checking by Facebook. The problem is Facebook outsources fact-checking to a third party. Now, which is that third party? These are shady organizations with absolutely no credibility, and therefore misinformation related to COVID-19 went unchecked in spite of these fact-checkers. The minister calls for new guidelines, he says, to respect the social, religious, cultural and linguistic diversity of India. Facebook should put in place country-specific community guidelines, unquote. So that's the big story we are tracking here on Newsnight as well. Time for a very short break. Keep watching Newsnight. Don't go anywhere.
Presenting a new level of wild. Kia Sonnet bookings open.
पक्की होगी बुनियादें तो हंसे हिंदुस्तान होगा पहले करो शुरुआत करो करो तो पक्की बात करो पहले करो शुरुआत करो करो तो पक्की
वंडर सीमेंट एक परफेक्ट शुरुआत
आधुनिक और आसान होते जा रहे हैं परिवार नियोजन के साधन, जैसे नया MPA इंजेक्शन। फोन करें और पाएं परिवार नियोजन से जुड़ी हर जानकारी। जोड़ी जिम्मेदार जो प्लान करे परिवार।
Welcome back. Time now for the second discussion in our In Focus segment. We're discussing about Facebook in the dock. I repeat, Facebook in the dock. Joining me is Subimal Bhattacharjee, who covers the intersection of business and technology. Subimal, good to see you on Newsnight. Thank you once again for your time. Now, the minister talks about bias, inaction, interference. These are very serious concerns for any government, particularly India, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think the Law and Information Technology Minister has made it very clear and in no uncertain terms about the concerns that come from a very popular social media platform that is Facebook. Now, in Facebook, if you see today, they have the largest number of users in India.
Right.
Anywhere in the world, you know, more than 30 crores users are there. And yes, people have got a great medium of expression, you know, and to remain connected. But a lot of biases, you know, are coming on. That is what the minister has pointed out. That, you know, even you see many of their employees' own biases are getting in the way of what an intermediary's role should be. Now, Facebook as an intermediary is guided under Section 79 of our Information Technology Act. That means they are only the facilitators. They should have no role in the inception, transmission or reception of any communication that goes through the medium. Now, if you see the recent activities that are happening, as it has happened in two of the stories that have come out in a foreign American journal, where it's being very clear that some of their employees are trying to tell things or trying to express their own feelings as citizens, which under the Facebook own employees code of ethics and all, they would not be allowed. So the question that the minister rightly raises is that, why are you not following those same credentials that you yourself vouch for? India is a very large democracy. It has a great democratic practice. So why are these efforts happening through this platform, which are trying to undermine the practice of democracy in India? So I think the minister is very right and just very pertinent that at this time he has also given this letter, because much of the biases of Facebook are also being alleged, towards the center of right or the rural dispensation in those 2-3 columns that has been coming out. But if you see, as he has pointed out in the run-up to the 2019 election, that it has been the other way around also. So I think it's, Facebook has to pull up its socks and understand that it cannot be seen in any kind of bias, and it has to play by the rules that we set in this country.
Absolutely. I mean, it cannot be business as usual, given the contents of the letter which we are flashing on our television screens as we speak. This is a very serious concern raised by the minister. Now, if I can go back to one of the quotes from that letter, Subimal, he says, it is doubly problematic when the bias of individuals becomes an inherent bias of the platform. And it is unacceptable when political biases of individuals impinge on the freedom of speech of millions of people. Now, that's a very valid argument. I wonder what Facebook has to say.
Yeah, absolutely. As I said, when you have 30 crore people within a country, using your platform, giving you the mileage for all of your, business accumulations and prosperity, when, you are or your employees are indulging in practices that itself violates a promise that you try to make. And it is not only a promise or a business promise, it is also made by Facebook. So,
Subimal, why is Facebook so unwilling to, quote you, play by the rules? Why is it an unwilling participant and ignoring these instances quoted by the minister in the letter of its own employees?
Well, I think, as you have seen, very many times they try to go back and say, that they are bound with laws of California, or they go by their terms of action. But as the minister has also stated, that, the community standards and few of our own cultural inherent, sentiments that we have, they all should be respected. After all, 30 crores is, not a, small petty number. So they have to respond. And if they are not responding, which they should do out of their own, business interest. But if they are not responding, that we are also not weak enough, because we have the rules and laws in place. The intermediary guidelines have been lying, for the government now to basically change. So once that happens, then the responsibility also falls on someone like Facebook to take steps, and if not, there could be action. So we cannot leave the space of social media, to which determines a lot of our democratic practices and beliefs, and motivates many to use this platform for their own aspirations, to be misguided, and that too by the employees of a platform who should play by their own rules. So internally Facebook should take action against such kind of tendencies, and two, externally they should follow the rules that they do here. What they told recently in Mr. Mark Zuckerberg recently went to the US House Judiciary Committee, and there he again repeated the same story, that they have no role in any kind of bias. They want to play only as a platform. So I think these are the things that we'll also have to enforce, and we have the laws and rules, and the minister's letter today is very clear in intent, that there is nothing.
Subimal, look at the hypocrisy, look at the duplicity of Facebook here. On the one hand, before 2019 election, Facebook deletes pages which tilt towards the right of center political opinion. At the same time, it outsources fact-checking to a third party and doesn't care about actual information related to COVID-19 pandemic in India. So, I mean, I can't seem to wrap my head around these duplicity and hypocrisy in the part of Facebook platform.
Yeah, I think that's the whole story around the fact checkers. Their own credentials are question mark in a certain place. And if you remember earlier this year, there was a commitment by Facebook and a few other social media to form, a kind of an alliance and go ahead and track all the fake news down and ensure that their networks are not misused. So this kind of duplicity, when it's no corrective action comes from their end, we must be able to push them to take action. It's not that that they are only investing in India in this times, hence we should give them any leeway. Not at all. I think the minister's intent is very clear. That letter itself signifies that they have to pull up their socks or there will be action. And we have the laws and wherewithal
So
in
what
place.
kind of action can the government take? So help our viewers understand, does the government have a legal recourse? Can
Of course, the
government
government
take
has a legal
Facebook to task?
Of course it has. There's if such kind of activities are happening from their employees, that means they are getting involved in the transmission of a particular content. So section 79 under which they are getting immunity of the section 79 of the Information Technology Act and the rules therein, they are getting whatever immunity they are not supposed to get, and hence government has the laws, exact laws in place to take action against them. So they could be penalized and even there could be action against their management. So I don't think there is any vacuum in terms of tightening them.
And what do we know about these organizations, Subimal? The third party in this case, the fact-checking team outsourced by Facebook. Now the letter says these are quote-unquote shady organizations with no credibility. Why would Facebook want to do it in the first place? And second, should it continue or should it immediately suspend this practice of giving it to a third party?
Well, you see, I think that's a very good point that the minister makes. I have always held that belief, that this kind of subjective choosing of third party to perform a certain task, which has a lot of public policy implications. I think this should go away and the responsibility should lie with the platform, and not go behind any.
So Facebook cannot now say that it was done by a third party, not us. It cannot hide behind this facade.
Absolutely, they cannot. Their responsibility lies with Facebook. The fact checkers doesn't exist anywhere in the eyes of the law. Facebook as an intermediary exists in the eyes of the law and the rules by which they have to play within the laws of the country. So period. I think that has to be really pursued by the government to push these people to do taking corrective actions.
Absolutely. So if there's one point Subimal makes, that is Facebook should and must play by the rules. On that note, Subimal, thank you once again for joining us on Newsnet. Appreciate it. Thank you for your time. Right now to another story we are tracking here on Newsnight. There is no end to China's lies and deceit. Now, Indian Foreign Ministry spokesperson says on 31st August, even as military commanders of India and China were talking to each other, the Chinese troops again engaged in provocative action. But due to the timely defensive action, the Indian side was able to prevent these attempts to unilaterally alter the status quo. Remember, India and China have been holding diplomatic and military talks over the past 3 months to resolve the situation along the line of actual control. It was agreed by both sides that neither side should take any provocative action or escalate matters. But the Indian Foreign Ministry spokesperson said on Tuesday the Chinese side violated this understanding on 29th, 30th and now on 31st August as well. Right, joining me for more on this developing story is my very special guest, Ambassador Vishnu Prakash. Ambassador Prakash has served as Ambassador to South Korea and High Commissioner to Canada as well. Ambassador Prakash, welcome to News Night. Good to see you again. Let me sort of start off by asking you, China is actually lying through its teeth. I mean, they say, the spokesperson says, China is not in the habit of usurping anybody's land, but facts state otherwise.
Well, not only that, the worthy foreign minister of China, Mr. Wang Yi, when he was addressing a group of think tanks in the US, said something even more interesting. that China was a permanently peaceful country. I don't understand the formulation, but I'm just quoting him. And went on to say that aggression and expansion were never in the genes of the Chinese nation throughout its 5,000 years of history. You know, this is a power which can do whatever it wants, say whatever it wants, deny whatever it can, and pursue its agenda. There are no ifs and buts. No agreements are sacrosanct. We have just to take the example of what they have done in South China Sea to understand that no rules apply to this hegemon or putative hegemon, and they will do anything to further their interests by all possible means.
So, what should and how should the world in general and India in particular respond to these misadventures by China Ambassador Prakash? What can India do on its own as well as in collaboration with like-minded countries?
Well, first of all, I must say that India, under the leadership of the Prime Minister, is already taking a stand which may have surprised the Chinese. We have, our forces have managed to rebuff the Chinese misadventures whenever they have tried to do something funny. Before they have been kind of rebuffed. They are certainly not at the LAC, along the LAC for a picnic. If we look at the size of their troops which are present, they're built up, their designs are anything but benign. So we are very clear about that. And we are being very watchful. But at the same time, it is useful to have international support, which is forthcoming. We have countries like France, the US, Israel, and Russia, which have been working with India in terms of supplying equipment, armament, intelligence, and so on. But we need to go beyond for the simple reason that for the democratic world, conflict begins where diplomacy ends. For China, conflict is a tool of diplomacy. So they will engage in conflict. But the good news is that the world has realized that China is a hegemon, that they covet, they want to create a China-centric world order. And they are not a country which believes in equality. They believe in a hierarchical structure where they want to be at the top. Chinese rules of the Chinese game that they want to evolve are not acceptable to the Committee of Nations. So we are at a very important juncture in the geopolitical history of the world. Let's see how it evolves, but we have to now develop a coalition of the willing so that the international community in one voice speaks out against Chinese perfidies and its machinations.
Indeed, coalition of the willing, says Ambassador Prakash. But very quickly, Ambassador Prakash, not only is China a pathological liar, it has antagonized every neighbor of its in the last several months and years, be it Vietnam, Philippines, India. I mean, could it be that Xi Jinping and his Communist Party officials are trying to divert attention from some key pressing domestic issues of concern to Beijing? Could it be that reason, that why they're doing what they're doing?
It could be so. It could be so. And I completely agree with that. They have managed to rub most of their neighbors, whether close to China or a little distance, including Australia, Canada, the US, and a country which can even covet the territory of Bhutan. One can understand what kind of a game plan that they are following. Now, there could be internal difficulties, and the Xi Jinping's policies reports are that they are not sitting well with other countries. But, I always try to remind myself that this is one country which is capable of subjecting even its own population to unimaginable pain. Look at the Cultural Revolution, look at the Great Leap Forward, so-called, look at the Tiananmen Square. So it's an adventuristic power, and they will stop at nothing to pursue an agenda, even if it is at odds. So the world has to come together, because only when the world speaks in one voice can they understand that they can push everybody this far and no further.
Indeed, thus far and no further. Time for the world to call China's bluff, says Ambassador Prakash. On that note, Ambassador Prakash, thank you once again for joining us on Newsnight. Appreciate it. Thank you. Now, and staying on this story, earlier on Tuesday, Raksha Mantri Rajnath Singh took a review meeting on the current situation at the LAC with Foreign Minister Subramaniam Jaishankar, Chief of Defence Staff General Bipin Rawat and Army Chief General M.M. Narawane. Remember, he heads out to Russia on Wednesday for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization or SCO meet of defence ministers. He's expected to hold talks with his Russian counterpart Sergei Shoigu and other top officials regarding a number of procurement programs. Right, moving on to other stories we are tracking on Newsnight. Incessant rains and floods continue to wreak havoc in many parts of central India. Normal life is out of gear in many areas of Madhya Pradesh, Odisha, Gujarat and parts of UP due to monsoon rains and surge in water level of rivers. In Madhya Pradesh, floodwaters started descending in some affected areas after torrential rain stopped. Villages located along the Narmada River are badly affected. Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan visited the flooded areas of Sehor, Devas and Harda districts and met the victims in relief camps. Hundreds of villages in Odisha are also submerged. Many rivers are flowing above the danger mark in Odisha. A huge amount of water has been released from the Hirakud Dam into the Mahanadi River to ease the flood situation. Meanwhile, Chief Minister Naveen Patnaik visited the flood-affected areas on Monday. Meanwhile, heavy rains continue to hamper normal life in Saurashtra and southern Gujarat. Flood-like situation has arisen along the Ganga and Yamuna rivers in Uttar Pradesh as well.
जब हम सर्वे शुरू करेंगे, नुकसान का आकलन करेंगे और नुकसान का आकलन करके उस नुकसान की पूर्ति करवाएंगे ताकि आपकी गृहस्थी फिर से पटरी पे आ सके, रोजी रोटी चल सके, गरीबों की भी और किसानों की भी फसल का आकलन करेंगे.
All right, now take a look at what else is making news around India in our National Roundup segment.
Lieutenant Governor of Jammu and Kashmir Manoj Sinha visited the holy Hazrat Bal Shrine in Srinagar. He took stock of the facilities in place for devotees. He paid obeisance at the magnificent shrine and prayed for peace, progress and prosperity in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. Manoj Sinha urged religious leaders to keep disseminating sustained awareness among the people regarding COVID-19 containment SOPs. In the Sushant Singh Rajput death case, CBI and ED questioned Riya Chakraborty's parents and Goa hotelier Gaurav Arya. Meanwhile, the Narcotics Control Bureau arrested one accused in drug connection case. Rajiv Kumar has assumed charge as the new election commissioner of the country. A 1984 batch IAS officer, Rajiv Kumar, retired as Union Finance Secretary. Rajiv Kumar has replaced Ashok Lavasa. He has joined the Election Commission with Chief Election Commissioner Sunil Arora and Election Commissioner Sushil Chandra. Two terrorist hideouts were busted along the line of control in Baramulla district of Jammu and Kashmir, and a huge cache of arms and ammunition including 5 AK series rifles, 6 pistols, 23 grenades and more have been recovered after Army launched a search operation. Vice Admiral S.R. Sarma assumed charge as the Chief of Material of the Indian Navy. Jharkhand Police has arrested 3 members of People's Liberation Front of India in Ramgarh.
The Supreme Court allowed telecom companies 10 years to clear their AGR dues worth rupees 1.5 lakh crore. Now, firms including Vodafone Idea, Bharti Airtel and Tata Teleservices were directed to pay 10% of their AGR-related dues by 31st March next year. The managing directors or CEOs of these telecom firms were required to submit an undertaking to pay AGR dues as per the Supreme Court's order within 4 weeks for payment of dues. The bench cautioned the firms that failure to pay the installments of the dues will incur penalty, interest and contempt of court. The three-judge bench, comprising of Justices Arun Mishra, S. Abdul Nazir and M.R. Shah, said the Department of Telecommunications demand and its verdict on AGR-related dues are final. Time now for all the news related to COVID-19 pandemic in India in our COVID Wrap segment.
Continuing the streak of posting more than 60,000 recoveries each day since the past 5 days, India has registered 65,081 recoveries in the last 24 hours, taking the recovery rate among COVID-19 patients to a further high of 77%. India's cumulative tests have crossed 4.3 crores. 1.22 crore tests were done in the last 2 weeks alone. India's per-day testing capacity has crossed 10 lakh tests. Public bus services across Tamil Nadu have resumed. Over 6,000 buses were pressed into service within district borders, even as metro services are set to resume from 7 September in Chennai. In Tamil Nadu, places of worship also reopened to the public. Malls, showrooms and big stores also resumed operations. Restaurants and tea stalls will operate from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. Goa's bar and restaurants reopened due to the relaxations granted to them during Unlock 4. Goa government has put various conditions to the licensed bars and restaurants, including wearing of masks. Delhi's next round of monthly sero-prevalence survey began on Tuesday, covering all 272 municipal wards to analyze the COVID-19 situation in Delhi at the micro level. Delhi High Court conducted its first physical hearing after a gap of more than 5 months. The High Court has been conducting hearings through video conferencing since March 24th. E-pass will no longer be required for movement from one district to another in Maharashtra. People and goods can be now moving without any approval, permission or e-pass.
Now, scientists at the CSIR Central Mechanical Engineering Research Institute in West Bengal have installed a solar tree. It's the largest of its kind in the world. The inclination of the arms holding the solar panels are flexible. They can be adjusted as per requirement. This feature is not available in the roof-mounted solar facility. The energy generation data can be monitored in real time or daily basis. Tapas Bhattacharya has more.
In a bid to promote the usage of solar energy, CSIR's Central Mechanical Engineering Research Institute has developed world's largest solar tree, which is installed at its residential complex in Durgapur in West Bengal. The solar tree has been designed in a manner to ensure maximum exposure of each solar photovoltaic panel to sunlight and also creation of the least amount of shadow area beneath.
अगर एनुअली देखा जाए तो ये 12,000 से 14,000 यूनिट एनर्जी देता है. जिसको कैलकुलेट करते हैं तो 330 वाट का पैनल है और 35 पैनल ऐसे लगाए गए हैं. इसके कारण ही हम कह रहे हैं कि 11.5 किलोवाट ये पीक एनर्जी देता है किसी मोमेंट में. और इसमें बहुत सारे एप्लीकेशंस में यूज किया जा सकता है.
Each solar tree has the potential to save 10 to 12 tons of CO2 emissions being released into the atmosphere as greenhouse gases when compared with fossil fuel fired energy generation. Besides, the surplus generated power can be fed into an energy grid. Each solar tree can cost 7.5 lakh rupees and can be a boon for the rural economy, as it can be aligned with the Pradhan Mantri Kisan Urja Suraksha Evam Utthan Mahabhiyan PM Kusum scheme for farmers for developing a renewable energy-based energy grid. Each solar tree can be customized for widespread usage in agricultural activities. The solar tree has the capacity to incorporate IoT-based features, that is round-the-clock CCTV surveillance in agricultural fields, real-time humidity, wind speed, rainfall prediction and soil analytics sensors. The institute has also developed solar-powered e-Suvidha kiosks that may also be connected to the solar trees for real-time access to the vast majority of agricultural database. Tapas Bhattacharya's report, DD India.
And that's a wrap. We leave you with these visuals of devotees bidding farewell to Lord Ganesha on Anant Chaturdashi amid COVID-19 restrictions on the 10th and final day of the Ganesh Chaturthi festival in Mumbai. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
गणदैवताय गणाध्यक्षाय धीमहि गुणशरीराय गुणमण्डिताय गुणेशानाय